Hello, my name is Peter Parfitt. Welcome to New Brit Workshop. This is the second video of two about the construction of the main frame of my new workbench. There are several other videos to follow about the fitting of the vise and the making of the drawers, and also about fitting Accuride drawer runners. Now you should be able to see that I've marked all these pieces. First of all, whether they're back or front. And then I've marked where the pieces fit into the various gaps on the frame. Now the pieces at the back are going to be screwed in from the back, and the front pieces are going to be screwed in from behind. There'll be glue there as well. And I'm going to start by putting dominoes in the ends of these long rails. And these are the 8mm by 50mm long dominoes. Now the next stage is put the two front rails on, and those will be screwed in from behind. Now make sure the left hand front, this is the left because it doesn't have a drawer runner at the top, and the right hand front are in the right positions before you start this process. You can see now the advantage of having these pencil lines, so we know exactly where these have got to go. It is a good idea to check for square, even though it's got the capability of being wiggled around a bit. And the reason is that the more square it is, the more likely you are to have properly lined these pieces up. And also check the distance between the two. Make sure they're absolutely spot on, and those are absolutely spot on. Now, despite the fact they're screwed in, I'm actually going to put a clamp this way around at each of these joints, and you'll see why shortly. Now, these clamps form a dual function. One is to help maintain the integrity of what we've just done, but also to protect that face as it gets lowered down onto the floor. Now the complication now is that we have panels that should fit in here, and as it stands right now I can just about spring those panels in. Well, that's fine, but I've also got channels in the parts that come in from the top and the bottom. So it means then that somehow or other I've got to be able to do the panel into each of the rails and the panel into this frame. And I can assure you it's not trivial. And I'm going to be relying on the fact that there's a little bit of give like that. And you'll see in a second how I'm going to do it. Now what I'm actually going to do is to insert the panels into both lots of rail. And then I'm going to lower it down and get it into position on the frame. Now before I put each of these 6 screws in, I'm going to tighten up each joint one at a time with a clamp and then put the screw in. Right, you can probably see what I've done now. I've turned it on end, and again I'm checking I'm at the front here and I want the front left-hand panel. Pair of these in. Put a little bit of glue at the bottom there, but nowhere else for these panels. Otherwise, in sliding them down like this, they would actually make quite a mess. That's that panel in. That's that one in. At this stage, it's easier to locate the ones without the panel before going to the other side. Well, that one wasn't too bad. I've now got to turn it over so I can do the other one. Now, rather than dragging that nice planed end across the floor, I've put a piece of wood under there so that I can drag it without scraping it along the floor. And in go my last two bits of panel. And just as before, it's easier getting the other end on first. Now to clamp it up, I've only got 2 clamps. This should be interesting. Ah! Look at that. Right, this calls for a bit of ingenuity. Okay, once again, the Bessie strap clamp comes to the rescue. Now, I'm just going to cheat a little bit. Now, one's got to really use one's judgment here. It's very difficult to work out whether one's got it right. I need a similar arrangement at the front. Right, that's the top lot done. Now I've got to do something about the bottom. And it really is just as well I've got a pair of these. These Bessie strap clamps I bought years and years and years ago, and they've come to my rescue so many times. Well, I've finally got all those clamps on there. It was pretty hard work actually, but I'm pretty sure that will be fine. I've checked it for square and I'm perfectly happy. Now my boards are all planed up and I'm just about ready to glue them together. But just let's have a look at some of the detail of what I've been doing. Now, one thing when you're joining boards like this, whether it's for a workbench or any other project really, is that you should try and alternate the grain pattern. And the way to do that is to look at the end here, and it may not show up very well, but I've got the grain doing this at this end here, and this one is going like that, this one is going like that, and this one is going like that. And the idea is that you alternate them, and that helps to balance things out as it dries out. If they were all going the same way, then it might try and do a big curve like that. Whereas if you alternate them, it might curve a little bit that way, 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 as it dries out over time. Now the glue that I'll be using to glue these boards together is Cascamite. And this is the ideal sort of glue for gluing long lengths of wood together because of its particular properties. And I'm going to be using some dry dominoes, and these are 10mm dominoes which are 50mm long. There'll be no glue with these, so it will allow the wood to expand and contract without causing any issues. If these were glued in, then when there is expansion and contraction, they may actually inhibit the wood coming back together again after a crack had formed. And so no glue on the dominoes. So I'm going to mix up the Cascamite with water, and then I'm going to set this all up. So I've mixed up my glue, and it's got a sort of creamy consistency, as you can see. And the recommendation with Cascamite is that you apply it with a brush. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to take care not to put any into the holes where the dominoes are going to go. And you only apply this to one surface. So I've put the glue on. I'm now just going to put these dominoes in dry, as I said. Make sure my markings line up. Yep, there's X's. I'm just going to put the glue on this side. And now the final one. I'm now going to clamp this with clamps which come up from underneath and some which come down from the top. I'm going to have 4 underneath and 3 on top. And you can see I've clamped this up with 4 clamps coming up from underneath and 3 from the top. That helps to alleviate any potential bowing. Because this is the top surface, I'm keeping these clamps up away from where glue might come out, because that might make a stain. At the ends where there's a very slight discrepancy in the fit of the boards, I've used these clamps at the joints and the same at that end, just to help encourage it into the right position, and my clamps are nice and tight. And I'm going to leave this now for over 6 hours. In fact, it'll be the rest of the day and overnight, and I'll take the clamps off tomorrow morning. Now, the plans for the new workbench are available, but in order for me to get them to you, I need an email address. Unfortunately, YouTube no longer have the private messaging service. However, if you put your email address in a comment to this video, the YouTube spam filter should identify that as an email address and separate it off so nobody can see it apart from me. I will then see it, I will react to it, send the plans, and then I will delete that comment so it protects your email address.